Hi, welcome to my second video. I'm sitting here in front of my computer with all my papers, and I'm going to talk to you about three things today. First of all, we're going to talk about rebate checks, and I'm going to share with you what I know about these rebate checks that you may have been hearing about. Secondly, I'm going to talk to you about unemployment, just give you a quick update, although there's not a lot of new information. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk to you about just kind of where we stand as far as reopening. What is going on really with our industry and with our practice in particular. So I'm going to share with you thoughts on those three things. And the first thing is rebate checks. You may have been hearing a lot on the news that you're going to get a rebate check. Well, sort of. You are eligible to receive a payment from the government. And I'm going to outline exactly what the requirements are for you to get your payment so that you'll know whether you can expect one or not. Then I'm going to tell you how you might be getting this money, how it might magically appear. Just another quick little civics lesson. The Constitution doesn't really provide a way for the government to just start randomly passing out money. There is nothing in the Constitution that will allow for the government to just give money to people for no reason. But we do have in place a very elaborate and complex system of tax laws. The tax code is already on our books. And so these rebate checks you've been hearing about are actually a provision of our tax code. What the government has done, what the Senate and the House of Representatives have done, is they've passed a law that is a provision under the tax code. And it provides for taxpayers to receive an additional tax credit. So that's what you're actually getting. You're actually getting a tax credit. Most of the time, tax credits will come as part of filing your tax return. But most of us have already filed our 2019 tax returns, and so it's too late really to build a credit into the system for 2019. None of us would get it because we already filed our tax returns. We're too late. But if we wanted to wait till 2020, that's too far away for all of us to wait to get our money. So not only has the legislation been enacted as a tax credit, it's a tax credit for 2020, but there's a provision for that money to be advanced to you early. So if you're a taxpayer and you're on the tax rolls, you're going to get your money. What exactly does it mean to be a taxpayer on the tax rolls? Does that mean you have to be working? Do you have to have a job? Well, not really. The first provision for being eligible to receive this rebate is you have to have a work eligible Social Security number. So rebates are not going to go to people who are undocumented and who don't have work eligible Social Security numbers. Rebates are not going to go to people who have maybe travel visas or for whatever other reason they're not eligible to work in the US. Do you have to actually be working? No, you don't have to actually be working. If you're retired, if you're drawing a pension, if the only thing you have is Social Security or disability or Medicaid, if that's all you have and that's all you live on, as long as you have a Social Security number, you can still get a rebate. So if you have elderly parents that you're worried about and you're wondering if they're going to get their money, they do still qualify. Yes. What the Department of Treasury is going to do is they're going to go through the tax return rolls, and everyone that filed a tax return for 2019, they're going to go ahead and issue you your rebate, unless you made too much money. The cap for getting a rebate, for getting your full rebate, is $75,000 if you're a single person. It's $150,000 if you're a married couple. So if you made less than $75,000 and you're a single person and you work, you have a Social Security number that makes you eligible to work, then you're going to get a rebate. If you're a married couple and together, when you add your incomes together, you make less than $150,000 and you're both eligible for working, you both have a Social Security number, you're going to get a rebate. Now, what does make less than $75,000 mean? Does that mean your W-2, your job? Well, in essence, yes. The rebate is based on what's called your adjusted gross income. And if you need more clarification on that as to whether what your adjusted gross income is, because maybe you have some things on your tax return that are a little complicated. Send me a private message or text me. I'll be glad to help you figure out what your adjusted gross income is. But for most people, it's just their wages that they make. And then add in maybe any interest that you earned from a bank account you have, or a CD that you might have, or if you've got some stocks that you've invested in, if you got any dividends from them, you add that in there too. But for most of us, it's just the money that we make. How am I going to get my rebate? Well, if you filed your 2019 tax return and you included information in there for you to get a direct deposit of your refund, then your rebate is going to come to you the same way that you got your refund. It's just going to magically show up in your bank account. If you filed a tax return for 2019 and you requested a paper refund check, or you had to pay and you didn't give them any direct deposit information because you weren't expecting any money back, then you're going to get a check in the mail. You're going to get a paper check. So that's the difference there. And getting a direct deposit is going to be much better because it's going to be a lot faster. What if I didn't file my 2019 tax return yet? If you didn't file your 2019 tax return yet, they're going to base your rebate on your 2018 tax return. So as long as you filed 2018 and you haven't filed 2019 yet, that's okay. But you can still go ahead and file 2019. If you file it, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to throw anything off. Go ahead and still do it if you want to. How much am I going to get? Well, if you are a single person, one person, you're going to get $1,200, as long as you make less than that maximum amount I talked about. If you're a married couple, you're going to get $1,200 times 2 because there's 2 of you. So you're going to get $2,400. What if I have children? Well, if you have children, you may be getting even more. The rules for children are, if you have children who are under 17 and they are your dependent, you're going to get an extra $500 per child. Is there a maximum number of children? No. As many children as you had dependents on your tax return that are under that age, that's how many $500 is you can qualify for. What's under 17? What does that mean? As of when? Like, what if they're turning 17 during these few weeks right now? I had a little trouble finding clarification on that, so I'm not sure. But based on the way I read it, it looks to me as if that under 17 rule is going to apply as of December 31st of last year. Because remember, this is a tax credit for a tax return, and everything else for tax returns is based on calendar years. And we cut off everything for our tax returns as of December 31st. We measure our wages, we measure our interest, we measure our dividends, we measure our business receipts, our rent revenues, we measure our deductions like our interest and taxes on our house. Everything that goes for your tax return is measured based on the end of a tax year. So I believe that that age cutoff for dependents is going to be as of December 31. But that's just a guess by me because I couldn't find the answer for sure. So if you have a couple kiddos and they're under 17, you'll be getting $500 a piece for them if they're your dependent. What if I'm not married to my kid's other parent? What if their mom or their dad sometimes claims them as a dependent and then sometimes I do? It doesn't really matter. The IRS is not interested in getting into your business and figuring out where the kid lives or who pays for the kid. They're going to go based on who got to claim that kid as a dependent on the tax return. So lucky you, if 2019 was your year to claim the kid, then you're going to get the additional $500 rebate. Those are the rules on the rebates. So $1,200 per person, $500 per kid, as long as they're under 17 and they're your dependent. Now, what if you have a dependent that's over 17? If you have a dependent that's 19 or 20 or 24, Hannah Hartman, what happens if you have dependents that are over that magic age limit, but they're still your dependent? Sadly, no one gets a rebate for those people. Those kiddos are not going to get their own rebate because they can be claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. So if Hannah's my dependent, I'm not going to get a rebate for her. If somebody that is in your family is 19 or 20 or 22 and you're claiming them as a dependent still on your tax return, nobody gets a rebate for those kids. They kind of fall into that no man's land crack between being their own grown up and claiming themselves and still being under 17 and being a kid. When am I going to get my check? Well, remember, you're probably going to get it direct deposited into your bank account. But based on what I've been reading, it's going to be at least 3 weeks. And I saw one source that said that the Department of Treasury has said that it may be as late as April 30th before they start issuing these rebates. So don't hold your breath and think you're going to be getting your money here in time to pay your April rent. It's not going to be coming for a while. If you don't have your rebate within 2 to 3 weeks, don't panic. Nothing's wrong. It just takes that long for things to happen in the government. So that's what I know about rebates. If you have specific questions, like your income, you're not sure if you're too high or you're too low, if you're not sure how to measure your income, if you've got a specific situation with a dependent and the way their birth date falls, or a custody thing that you have a question about, send me a separate message, send me a text, and I will tell you what I know. And I'll keep you up to date. Let's talk about unemployment. What do I know about unemployment? Well, I went to a webinar. I sat in on a webinar just about 2 hours ago with the IDA, the Indiana Dental Association, and they had an attorney on there that was talking about unemployment. She contacted she's been in close contact with the Department of Workforce Development, and they're stating that they're looking at 3 weeks from your application date before you could possibly receive your first payment. So for most of us, our application dates have only been a couple of weeks ago. We're still looking at being 2.5 weeks from our application date, so I'm not anticipating any of us receiving any benefits for at least another week, could be a couple more. You have to remember that, first of all, that waiting period that used to exist in the state of Indiana has been waived. So when the computer program at the Department of Workforce Development is comparing your last date of work to today's date, they're doing those date comparisons. They're having to rewrite that part of the program to accommodate the fact that that wait period no longer exists. Also, the federal government is providing a $600 bump, a $600 additional amount of income to each person who files an unemployment claim per week. So the state of Indiana has been assigned the task of distributing that money to you. The money's coming from the federal government, but the state of Indiana is the entity that has to figure out how to get it to you. So that's a huge job for the state, to have to figure out how to rewrite that portion of the program as well to change the maximum benefit you're eligible for. And it's no longer going to be that $390. It's going to be even higher. It's going to be up to what you made, what your eligible wages would indicate that you're eligible for, versus that max of $390 plus $600. So that's a big chunk of computer program that needs to be rewritten, and that's taking some time. So if you don't receive your first unemployment check for another couple of weeks, don't panic. Don't think that's unusual. And I confirmed that with an employment law attorney that works in Indianapolis, who has been in close contact with the Department of Workforce Development. So where does that leave us? For a lot of us, that leaves us as today's our first payday with no payday. Most of you all got a pretty good sized check 2 weeks ago. It was pretty equivalent to what you're usually used to getting. But today you're used to getting another check and you don't have a check. And you don't have your rebate yet, and you don't have your unemployment yet, but you still have your bills. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I want to strongly recommend to you, I want to suggest that you sit down and try to get every creditor that you could possibly think of to give you an extension on any debts that you have. Banks are being very gracious about extending payments on mortgages, credit cards, and car loans. I was just talking to my kids about this last night. They're also extending payment dates on student loans. My own personal experience is that a lot of websites, if you go to the website, they have a huge button right on the front page of the website that says, click here for COVID-19 information. A lot of banks and credit unions and lending organizations, all you have to do is go to the website and click on there, and you'll be able to request a deferral of your mortgage, your car payment, any other kinds of loans you have, your credit cards, for 90 days. Some of them are actually holding off on interest as well, although they're not required to. Chase, for example, if you have anything at Chase, it's so easy to request a deferral. All you have to do is go to the website, click, 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 and it's done. It's taken care of. Contact your cell phone carrier. Contact your utilities. Go to their websites. See if there's anything that they will do for you to delay your payments. I'm going to do a little bit more research on this as far as utilities and that kind of stuff, and I'll give you any information that I'm able to find out about that in another video. But for now, do your research. You're home. You don't have anything else to do anyway. Sit down in front of your computer and see what you can find out. Help yourself. Don't be helpless. Help yourself. If you don't have a computer or an internet connection that's reliable at your house, you're welcome to go into the office. I have no problem with you going to the office and using our computers there, and using our printer if you feel like you have to print out any documentation, and using our phones. Please feel free. As you come in the door, you may want to be aware of turning the water on so you can flush the toilet. And when you leave, please turn the water off and wipe down any surfaces that you touched. But I don't care if you go to the office. It's fine. It's there for you to use. We're paying for the internet anyway. You might as well make yourself at home. Make yourself comfortable. The second thing I can do for you, though, as far as providing some financial relief during this kind of sandwich time when you don't have any money coming in and you're still having to pay bills, is I have been hoarding money. I have been putting off paying some of my creditors at the office, and I've hoarded up a little bit of extra money. It's not a lot, but if any of you are in a financial bind, I would be glad to lend you up to $500 to get you through these next 30 days. If that's something that sounds good to you, if you could use that money and you'd like to take advantage of that, send me a private message, a text, and I'll figure out a way to get you a check or to get you cash by Monday. I'm filming this on Friday, the 3rd of April, and I probably will get it posted tonight or sometime on Saturday morning, the 4th, so I can get you cash in your hand by Monday the 6th if you need it. Just let me know. Send me a separate message. That's something that I can do for you. It is a loan. I will need you to pay it back to me as soon as you start drawing your unemployment or as soon as you get your rebate check, whichever is first. So, I talked about rebate checks. I talked about unemployment. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we stand as far as reopening and where we stand as far as a practice. I'm going to grab a couple papers that I want to read from for you. All right. We have two things happening that you need to understand about. First of all, the ADA, the American Dental Association, has expanded its recommendation for office closures and emergency patients. On April 1st, which was Wednesday, the American Dental Association issued an opinion, really. It's not a law because they can't make laws, but a very strong recommendation that dentists keep their offices closed to all but urgent and emergency procedures until April 30th at the earliest. So that was issued 2 days ago on April 1st, and they are telling us that they strongly recommend that we stay closed till April 30th for all but urgent and emergency procedures. They've issued guidance. I'm going to hold this up here. This is what constitutes a dental emergency. My camera's having a little trouble focusing. I can see this little light is blinking. It's trying to focus. If you want to pause this video and expand this so you can read it, you can. Or you can just go to the ADA website and you can pull it up. Along with this one sheet of paper, it has about 4 different flow charts and a bunch of different ways to help dentists determine what is truly an emergency, what is urgent. I also have a recommendation from the governor of Indiana. On March the 30th, the governor of our state signed a second executive order. His first one was on the 23rd, his second one was on the 30th, which was Monday of this week. The governor's second executive order, which was signed this week, talks about medical and dental facilities staying closed. And this is what he says. He says to preserve the PPE for healthcare providers who are battling COVID-19, beginning April 1st, all healthcare providers, whether medical, dental, or other, are directed, not suggested, directed, to cancel or postpone elective and non-urgent surgical or invasive procedures. He provides guidance as to what he considers elective and non-urgent. I don't know where he gets his definition from, not being a dentist, but the place where I pulled this from was the Indiana Dental Association website. The IDA is where I got this. And the IDA has also said that they agree that in the state of Indiana, we should comply with the governor's request. So we have the governor of our state, we have our state dental association, and we have our national dental association, all telling us that we basically need to keep doing the same thing that we're currently doing until at least April 30th. So that's what we're going to do. We will continue to see patients on an as-needed basis, emergency and urgent care only, until at least April 30th. We will continue to consider all our office officially closed. And if you are asked to assist at the office, we will continue to handle it the way it's being currently handled. I'm going to give all of this information to Dr. Hartman. He's started looking at it. He's going to dig into all of the guidance from the ADA to determine what truly constitutes an emergency. And if a patient is experiencing what he considers emergency, we will see them. If they are not experiencing what's considered an emergency, then we will not see them. We will not be opening our doors on a regular basis, and none of us will be going back on the payroll until at least April 30th. So what does that mean for you? Well, we've got a couple of things to talk about. First of all, economically. Once your unemployment kicks in, a lot of you will be making close to what you were making before. You'll also be getting your rebate payment from the government soon enough. Economically, I think we can make it through this. But what does it mean for us emotionally as a people? What I would suggest is that you try to find some purpose in your time away from the office. What I've been doing is making quilts. And I've also been spending a ton of time, like 5 or 6 hours a day, I've been spending reading about legislation and the latest in loans, and I'm working on all that kind of stuff and making videos for you guys. That may not be something that interests you, but find a purpose in your time away from the office. Learn something that you always kind of were interested in. Do you know how to change a tire on a car? Do you know how to change your oil? Do you know how to make a decent white sauce? Do you know how to bake without a box mix from a store? Do you really know who Henry VIII's wives were and why he had to have so many of them? Have you ever wanted to try yoga? There's a lot of things that you can learn and that you probably always thought seemed interesting, but you never had time to really pursue it. Now's the time. Make a plan. Come up with something that you have always wondered about, and then put your mind to accomplishing it. Whether it's learning a new skill, learning some new knowledge, you may even be able to be qualified with a new license. You may be able to sign up for an online course where you can get some credit for something. This may be the time when you discover another passion that you never knew you had. Start painting if you want to. Start sculpting. There's no reason why you can't. If you've got materials around your house, start piddling around with them. Get out those art supplies that you had from when you were a kid, or from when you were a teenager, or go over to your mom's house and get some of that stuff that's in her basement and start doing something fun. You never know where it might lead. If you have kids at home, there's no reason why you can't teach them something beyond just their school curriculum. You all can delve into the history of the state of Hawaii, or if you have family that lives in Georgia, figure out the history of the state of Georgia. Do something creative. Do something fun. Make some purpose for this time that you have off. How many times in your life have you said, gosh, I wish I had some more time to fill in the blank? Well, now's your time. So try to find some purpose. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I hope that you'll do too. So that's what I have for today. Just a little side note about myself. This kind of stuff is absolutely fascinating to me. I love reading all of this stuff. This is what I did for a living for so many years, was read tax laws, read tax regulations, and try to figure out how it applied to normal people. So if you have any questions about things, just shoot them to me in a text. I'd be glad to answer them for you. I hope you understand that it is a lot. It's very overwhelming sometimes when I dig into the intricacies of some of these laws. So if I have to put my brain on hold and if I have to call it a day, sometimes I may not always get back to you right that same day, but I will eventually answer your questions. And know that you're not bothering me. I actually kind of like digging into these things and figuring out answers for you. So anything that you've heard on the news, anything that your friends are talking about, anything that you might think might apply to you, let me know. I'll find out what I can for you and I'll give you your answer. So don't forget what I told you about that I can loan you some money if you're in a pickle. Just send me a message and I'll get it to you by Monday. And I'm going to check in with you one day next week and see how you guys are all doing. So that's what I have for today. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend. If you're like me, Fridays and Saturdays are exactly the same. There's no difference from one day to the next. But anyway, have a nice weekend for what it's worth. And I will talk to you again soon.